Hello everyone, and thank you for watching my 248 video tutorial. We are continuing to add some finishing touches to our game, and in the previous lecture we have made our scores count and we have made our high score saved in player prefs. And in the end of previous lecture we were discussing this issue that when the game is over our player should see some kind of a message. So in this lecture we are going to return to developing our UI. And I think it makes sense to create a separate panel for our message. So I will go to Canvas and we have our panel that is now called just panel, and I will rename it to screen panel or maybe a main panel. Let's call it main panel. So this is the panel that currently holds everything that we see on the screen. I will collapse that and go to Canvas, UI, and I will create another panel. So this panel will appear on top of everything, and I'm fine with that. I'm going to rename it to Game Over Panel, and we can play with the settings of this image script a little bit. First, I'd like to change its source image from background to none, so that we don't get these corners and the graphic, and I'm actually fine with the color, so I will leave it this way. Now I will go to our Game Over panel and I'll create a couple of texts. So I'll go to UI and create a text, and this text will say Game Over, and I'll hit enter, and your score is, and we will have our score printed right after this text. I will resize it and make it appear in the center, play with the settings a little bit. I want all the text to appear in the center of this text box, and I want best fit enabled, and I want it to appear a bit higher, and I will apply our magic preset to it. So we'll just put the anchors into the corners of this text box, and I will go to this text and I will hit Ctrl D. So we will have another text. I will drag it a little lower from this one and make it a bit smaller. And here I will just write a placeholder for our score. Let it be 1380 like we had it before in our scene, and I will drag the anchors and put them into the corners of this text box. And another thing that I'd like to create, I will go to panel, UI, and I will create a button, and I will make this button sit here in the lower side of the screen. I will change the source image UI sprite to none, and I will make it say something like continue. So I'll go to its text that is attached to our button, and I'll make it say continue in capitals, and I will enable best fit on this text, and I will probably add some padding, maybe 10 pixels of padding on each side, and 5 pixels on top and 5 pixels on the bottom. And I will change the color of our button. I will go to its image component and I will use the color picker, and let's make it dark like our game field background. And actually I've noticed a little mistake. I was changing the anchors not for the button itself but for the text, so I have to select button here in the hierarchy, and I will go and drag its anchors to the corners of our button. And once we have done all that, I can go to our panel that is called Game Over panel, and as I drag this panel we can see that everything works pretty fine, except for if we have a smaller screen. I'll have to change the minimum size of this text to, let's say, 5, so that when we shrink our panel we can still see this text. And just for convenience I will rename our texts. So this first text that says Game Over and something something, I will call it Game Over Text, and another text I will call it Game Over Score. So we have assembled this panel and we will use it to display our Game Over message. The only thing I have forgot to do is I would like to go to our fonts folder, and I can select all the text that we have on our Game Over panel, and I can try to apply Clear Sans Regular to it or Clear Sans Bold. I think that our text looks better with Clear Sans Bold. Now if I select our game over panel and go to the inspector, there is this little check mark right near the name of our game over panel, and I can disable it or enable it. For our purposes it is better to disable it, and we will then enable it in code if we have a game over situation. So for now I will disable this panel, and in the next lecture I will add some code to our game manager that will display a game over message if the field is full and there are no more moves available, and it will display a you won message if the player reaches to the 2 of 8 tile, and we will test it and we'll see how it looks in our game. So thank you for watching and see you in the next video.